First story. Entitled Stepsister bullied me all my life. Said she will piss on my dying father's grave with stepdad's support, because I'm mom's affair baby. She slapped me and cut my hair for talking to her crush. Now, having a breakdown, I'm marrying her one true love, and I'm glad she suffers and is losing her mind. I-29F was an affair baby between my mom and dad. My mom was already married to my stepdad and had my half-sister 32F, whose name will be R. R has always hated me for some unknown reason. I never gave her any reasons to hate me. As we grew up together, she just did. Growing up, I spent more time with my mom than my dad, who traveled a lot due to his work. But when he was in town, I always took the opportunity. It was the only time I could be away from my SD and R. R would always do terrible things to me. She would destroy my things, and gifts and souvenirs my dad would send by mail would go to the trash. It was so bad that when I was going to enter HS, she cut off my hair when I was sleeping, and I had to get a bob hairstyle that reached my chin and my nose if styled. My mom scolded her, and SD enabled her even more, patting her on the back for a good job when mom wasn't looking. In high school, I was in a graphic design class, and that's how I met R's one true love. At first greetings I didn't know. I would stay after school to finish my in-class assignments for that class, and he would be there to use the computers to do some drawing he had saved in the computer. The computer he used was right next to mine, so we sat together when I would stay. We spoke once, and he said he liked my hairstyle. I was the only girl in school with really short hair, so I did stand out a bit. One day my sister came to spy on him, and she was furious seeing me sitting next to him. She was so mad that when we got home, she slapped me on the face, accusing me of wanting to steal him. After that incident, I tried to stay away from him, not wanting to deal with her craziness. Thankfully, I only had to endure her for another year before she went off to college. My first year of college, my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer and was told he had that year 2013 to live. My mother got news and told SD and R. R in response sent me a video she took from a TV show I've been told was called Shameless, where there's a blonde girl peeing on a man's tombstone with a text saying, "Can't wait for that MF to die, be gone. Have fun cleaning the mess I'm going to make." Where she sent another picture, which was poop. I was so furious and disgusted that someone like her existed. Someone who would be so happy to see someone's life end. My second year was rough, as my dad died a few days before school started. In the end, he left me with money that would help for the years to come and a few properties I rented to make extra cash. Wondering if she did it? Yup. Sent another video for proof. Somehow I feel karma was real at the time. A few weeks after that, I ended up bumping into the guy she was obsessed with, and still is when I went to hang out with my friend who went to the same college as him. We spoke briefly until my friend came and we left. A few days after that, my friend told me the guy she saw me with asked for my info, and she gave him my Snapchat, knowing if I didn't want to talk to him, she would give him an app I don't use anymore. I'm going to be honest. When she told me this, I so wanted to use him and get back at my sister, knowing how much she loved him. But I know how it feels to be hurt, and so I added him on Snapchat and texted him to meet me at a coffee shop. When we met at our local coffee shop, I was honest with him on why I reached out and told him how crazy R is. He wasn't surprised. He went on telling me the things she would pull on the girls he would talk to, and how she would try to sabotage his relationships when they were in high school. To her telling them they slept together while speaking or in a relationship with those girls, she was having his kid, and even saying he had an STD. Yeah, she's nuts. To keep this short, we stayed friends until a few months, when we started dating. We had a lot of similar hobbies and interests, and we think alike. He says it's the power of mind meld Star Trek, seeing how we might as well be telepathic with one another. This year we decided to get married. Engaged for 3. Our jobs pay us really well in our respective fields, where we can go big on our wedding. Now here comes R. R sadly still stalks my fiancé. He isn't much of a social media person, so he doesn't post much, but when he does, it's on his Instagram story. He recently posted a picture of my hand with the engagement ring captioning, "After 3 years, next up, the wedding ring." And yes, his Instagram is private, and he has her blocked. But there are a few people who tell her friends, and they tell her, it can't help some people live for the drama. I don't talk to my mom as much, seeing how she wasn't much help when my sister would bully me, or when my SD belittled me. But I do once a month for a few minutes. She had called me complaining how R was throwing a tantrum about how J, my fiancé, was engaged, and she doesn't know who the B is. That's when I got the idea. I'm going to let her know who the B was. Don't worry, Jay is fine with this. I had R blocked on social media, and I unblocked her and made my Instagram public for this occasion. After unblocking her, I posted a picture of my nails without the ring, my nails that were exactly the same as the picture he put on his story. A few days later, I posted inspiration pictures of wedding invitations. Guess who saw them? A few days after that, I put a picture of myself with my friends dressed up with the caption, "My bridesmaids," and Jay a few hours later with his groomsmen with no caption. But we had the same background of the restaurant where the picture was taken. And behold, I get messages on Instagram where she demands to know if I was the girl Jay was going to marry. She said things like, "No, he can never like a girl like you," and "You know how much he means to me." I left her on read. Yesterday, I posted a picture of the two of us. The pictures were taken on Saturday, when we took his family out to inform them of our wedding plans and how they are officially invited with an invitation given to them. I posted 3 pictures. One normal one is when we first started dating, when he proposed, and the one on Saturday with his family with the invitation in the air as they surround us. Caption being, "Sure, proud to announce I am getting married this year to the love of my life. I can't wait for a lifetime full of blessings alongside you." I got messages an hour after I posted that from R that I didn't read and calls from my mom, which I declined. Today, I went on Instagram and saw over 80 messages of insults from her, one being how ugly I looked with my short bob hair, which I cut for this occasion. Which I replied, "Interesting. Jay doesn't think so." Funny actually, Jay confessed to me after our second date that he thought in high school my Alice Cullen haircut, as you described it before, was the reason that grabbed his attention back then. He thought I looked very cute. Guess you did have a reason to feel threatened that time, as he found me attractive even then. After she read it, I made my account private and blocked her. Now I'm thinking about doing it again when we're getting married or changing my bio to his last name. Who knows? Second story. Entitled, Sil allows her demon semen daughter to bully her daughter, so I rescued her. Entitled, in-laws, who resent me for thinking I turned their daughter into gay, took Sil's side and accused me of child abuse. My wife lost it. So my wife has a cousin we'll call Karen. Karen's mom and stepdad are very successful doctors with 40 acres of land and a huge house. Karen has always been a spoiled brat. So it's no surprise that Karen's crotch goblin, Stacy, is also a spoiled brat. One day I had just laid my daughter down for a nap when Karen called to ask if she could bring Stacy over for a playdate. My daughter was notorious for taking long naps, and I told them it wasn't the best time. Karen came over anyway, telling me at the door that they'd just wait for daughter to wake up. What? So they barge in before I can refuse them, and we make light conversation. Stacy busies herself with daughter's toys, while I sit through Karen complaining about her latest fight with her baby daddy. After about 40 minutes of small talk, I finally say, "Well, I don't think daughter is waking up anytime soon, so maybe we should do this another day." Karen looked at her phone and shrugged. "We've been here this long. We might as well wait." I insisted daughter would be sleeping for a while longer, and Stacy had started complaining about being hungry. I pushed the issue of them leaving before Karen could ask me to feed her kid. This is where the real trouble began. Stacy had been playing with a set of colorful ponies my daughter was very fond of, and when Karen told her to get ready to leave, Stacy continued to clutch the horses. Karen guided her to the door, horses in hand, and I had to stop them. "Hey sweetie, could you give me daughter's horses before you go?" Stacy just held them tighter and turned away from me. I looked at Karen, who was just watching the exchange with no intention of getting involved, so I continued to coax Stacy into giving me the horses as nicely as I could. Stacy got more upset and turned further away from me the more I spoke, so I finally straightened up and gestured toward her while staring at Karen, silently demanding help. Karen just sighed and said, "Stacy, could you leave daughter's toys here?" "But mommy, I like them." Karen looked at me and shrugged. "I don't think she's going to let them go. Maybe you should just get known ones for daughter." I had to literally bite my tongue to keep from lashing out at Karen at that moment. Taking hold of the horses with one hand, I gently informed Stacy that I would be taking them. She yelled, "No," and tried to tear them away from my grasp, but I firmly and smoothly took them from her arms. It wasn't a yank. I was trying to be nice this whole time, even though I wanted to swat that entitled Teshi and stick her nose in the corner. Stacy started wailing like I smacked her in the face, and Karen glared at me, swooping her child into her arms. "She's going to be like this all the way home now." I just shrugged as Karen cooed at Stacy to get her to stop screaming. "You should probably take her home then, before she wakes up, daughter." I was no longer being nice to Karen. You should let her keep the damn horses. Karen glared at me again, doing the dance of the desperate parent. I opened the door for her and gestured toward it. They belong to daughter. You can get some for Stacy yourself. Karen left, grumbling about me being a selfish bee, with Stacy still screaming in her arms. Daughter slept for another hour, and in that time I got a phone call from my wife asking what had happened. Apparently Karen texted the whole family that I tortured Stacy, and I'm just a fat bully. My wife knew none of that was true and wanted the real story. Things have kind of smoothed over with her family now. But every time Karen tries her SHT, little fights break out all over again, because I'm the only one who will call her out. I have other stories if anyone is interested. Update. Karen's demon semen holds my kid hostage on Easter. Edit. Both my wife and I are female. We're a lesbian couple. Safe to say, I do not get along with my wife's family. They blame me for turning her gay, so during holiday get-togethers, I focus on the kids or tuck myself into a corner away from everyone else. That's where I was when the trouble began. The small house was crowded with bodies for East dinner pre-pandemic, and since the kids were off playing, I had settled in a seat in the corner. My sister-in-law rounded the corner with large eyes to tell me, "So daughter is screaming for you." I was struck by her wording, so as I got up, I asked, "She's calling for me?" "No, she's screaming." Well, that kicked my parental instincts into high gear, and I bolted to the playroom down the hall. I could hear my daughter, 7 at the time, screaming and wailing, even before I reached the door. But the door was locked. I'll admit I could have taken an extra moment to get someone inside the playroom to unlock the door. But I was focused solely on reaching my kid. So I gripped the handle and turned it hard enough to pop the lock out of place and shove open the door. Of course, the first face I see is Stacy, Karen's little spoiled brat, staring up at me with wide eyes because the door had nearly hit her when I forced it open. In the next moment, daughter is clinging to me, tears streaking down her cheeks. She was in a full panic, screeching at me what had happened. Apparently, she wasn't playing the way Stacy had wanted her to play, and when they started to argue, daughter tried to leave instead of fight. That's when Stacy locked the door and stood in front of it so daughter couldn't leave the room. Stacy is a bit older and taller, so daughter couldn't make her move, and that is when she started screaming for help. I was so angry, and I tried to talk to Stacy to show her how her actions affect other people. That child has absolutely no empathy. She just shrugged, and that was my tipping point. I announced loudly that daughter wasn't to play with Stacy anymore, picked up daughter, and carried her to my wife, her parent of choice. Only when Stacy started crying did anyone else get involved. All those adults, no one responded to my kid screaming for help. But as soon as Stacy tears up, the whole world stops. Karen, Stacy's mom, followed me into the front room, yelling about how mean I am to children. "She's just a child," was thrown out more than once. I realized I had started a full-blown fight, and was about to tell my wife we should leave when wife goes into mother bear mode. I should mention that at this point my wife was about 5 months pregnant with our second child and very hormonal. She saw daughter crying, heard Karen yelling at me, and something in her snapped. Usually she is very soft-spoken, so much so that her family thought I somehow controlled her every thought and action, hence them blaming me for turning her gay. They no longer believe that after this day. My wife and Karen get into a screaming match. Wife steps toe-to-toe with her older cousin, who is used to pushing wife around. They are yelling so viciously that my mother-in-law ducks between them to guide daughter out from in between them and distract her. It was an admirably smooth rescue on her part, actually. I don't even remember what all was said, but Karen accused me of child abuse, and my wife told her how badly she was failing Stacy as a parent to allow her to act the way she does. Everyone else was stunned for a few moments, watching the exchange. I had never heard my wife yell like that, and I'm sure it was a surprise to the rest of the family. Karen's mom, a saint of a woman we'll call the doctor, tried to break up the argument that was now center stage, and wife marched outside into the drizzle because she was still so pissed. Mother-in-law was in the kitchen coloring with daughter, so I followed wife outside to try to calm her down. I swear it was like a scene from a cartoon where the wife is pacing and shouting angrily in the driveway, and I'm just following her helplessly behind. After a few minutes, the doctor pokes her head out the door and hollers, "You're going to get that baby sick if you don't come inside." That got wife to listen, and we headed back inside, both damp. Mother-in-law is just inside the door, ready to steer wife away from Karen, and the doctor is telling Karen she may want to just pack up for the day. I sit back in my corner seat and let the family sort the drama out, feeling kind of smug about how quickly wife had come to mine in daughter's defense. Karen made quick work of packing up their things, and the doctor escorted her and Stacy to the door. Just before stepping out, Karen turns to me and spits. "You should be nicer to children, OP." I just smirk and say, "You should teach your child to play nicely with others." She gasped in anger and was about to say something else, but the doctor gently pushed her out the door and helped her to her car. After we left, the family tried to blame daughter for the trouble in the playroom, saying she was making mountains out of molehills, and I overreacted. We were the black sheep for a little while. A year later, my wife and I graduated from college, and we were having a celebratory dinner with her family. It was pleasant. Karen wasn't there with her demon semen, but the doctor showed up. She's a nice lady, so no trouble there. Until we were all getting ready to leave. I was waiting for wife, and the doctor sits next to me to make small talk. What are my plans after graduation? Are my parents happy for me? Just pleasant stuff. And then she says it. "You know, we were talking to the other kids in the playroom that day, and they said Stacy didn't lock the door. They all told me when it happened that she was the only one who touched the lock." Right. But we spoke to them later, and they finally admitted that she didn't. I stayed silent. "So we can let it go." I have let it go. You didn't need to bully those kids into lying for you. And with that, wife came out of the restroom, and I immediately stood up. Because daughter didn't want to go play at Stacy's house anymore. They all blamed me, saying I was the one keeping them apart. False. My kid just understands she doesn't have to suffer abuse just because we're family. TLDR. Stacy locked the door because daughter wasn't playing right. And Karen makes me out to be a child abuser because I wouldn't just let her hold my kid hostage. Third story. My boyfriend's little brother moved in after his parents got arrested for abusing him. Now he is creeping me out, and my boyfriend is just brushing it off. "Hi, I'm not really sure how to handle this situation and would appreciate some advice. I 23F have been with my boyfriend 26M for almost 3 years, and we live together. Recently, his parents were arrested. I'd rather not go into the details, and as a result, his little brother 11M has had to move in with us. I understand the situation is complicated, and my boyfriend didn't really have a choice obviously. He couldn't just leave his brother with nowhere to go. The thing is, I find his little brother creepy, and I feel horrible even saying that. I know he's a kid, and he's gone through a traumatic experience, but some of the things he does make me really uncomfortable. For instance, he stares at me a lot, like almost all the time when we're in the same room. I'll catch him just watching me, and it's unsettling. He also has this habit of walking into our bedroom without knocking, especially when my boyfriend is out. I've told him multiple times that he needs to knock, but he either ignores it or just doesn't care. He will shower and use the bathroom with the door wide open, clearly so everyone can see him when walking past. Even though I have told him he needs to keep the door closed when he's in there. One time, I had just gotten out of the shower and was in my towel when I walked into the bedroom, and he was just standing there, staring at me. I asked him what he was doing, and he didn't even answer. He just kept staring before finally walking away. I brought this up to my boyfriend, but he brushed it off, saying his brother is probably just adjusting to everything and doesn't mean any harm. I lent him my laptop because he said he needed it for homework, and when I got it back, it was completely filled with adultery, like he had downloaded adultery. It was in the search history. I told my boyfriend he needed to speak with him, but my boyfriend says it's normal for a boy his age. He just told me to clear the search history and delete what he downloaded. But he is not being normal. He is weirding me out, and I feel bad even saying it. I get that this kid is dealing with a lot. Losing his parents like that is traumatic, but at the same time, I feel like my feelings are being dismissed. My boyfriend says I'm overreacting, but I honestly feel really uncomfortable in my own home now. I even find myself avoiding being alone with his brother because it just feels weird. I don't know if I am overreacting. Like, I understand giving some leeway because of everything that's happened in his life, but he is really weirding me out. Any advice on how to handle this would be really appreciated. Top comments. Hey LeBear. Get a lock for the door. Get that kid in therapy, and start discussing things like boundaries and healthy relationships, what they are, and what they mean. Close the door on him in the bathroom, and eventually it will click. He's probably not talking because he just went through some hellish trauma. Allow yourself, your boyfriend, and the brother some grace for this adjustment period. You could also consider living separately for a while, if it's in your best interest. Just take care of yourself. And you got this. Is this the trend? This kid sounds like he really needs therapy. This is way beyond what you should be getting advice online for. I know he's just a kid now, but what about a few years from now? This behavior is not normal. None of what you describe is even close to normal for a boy his age. Therapy, and it might take a while to find a good therapist, is really your only option. Gaianos Morathanu. This kid has serious issues and needs to be in therapy, like now. It's super concerning that your BF isn't taking it seriously and is dismissing your feelings. He's undoubtedly feeling really overwhelmed right now. But that's no reason to put so much of this on you. IMO, you need to put your foot down and tell your BF that if he won't take it seriously and get his brother's help, you don't feel safe and comfortable in the home, and you're leaving. Make it clear you're not saying, it's me or your brother, it's everyone's mental health. Shabin. I'm not sure anyone has mentioned this yet, but some of his behaviors indicate sexual trauma or child abuse. Being hypersexual, doing age-appropriate things, not understanding physical boundaries, and seeking adultery at 11 years of age are all indicators that this child has witnessed, experienced, or been exposed to things that were inappropriate. Your boyfriend may be jaded because he came from the same household, but he better wake up, get his head screwed on straight, and take this seriously. Allowing an 11-year-old to knowingly have access to adultery is considered SA and child endangerment in some places. I understand your feelings. They're valid. Something is off with this child. However, before you jump straight to fearing him, try to put his behavior into perspective and look at things from a different point of view. Your boyfriend took guardianship of him. He needs to start acting like a guardian and start talking to his brother like an adult talks to a child. This child needs boundaries, and he needs to know that his behavior is unacceptable. Your boyfriend needs to tell him that when he uses the restroom or showers, the door remains closed. He needs to know it's unacceptable behavior to search for adultery. If he can't be trusted with the computer, he will not be allowed to use the computer, or will only be permitted to do so under one of your supervision. This child needs therapy ASAP. You and your boyfriend need guidance and assistance. If DCS or a similar agency is involved, reach out and ask for help for this child, and ask what you can do to get him help. Update. Hiya guys, I wanted to give you all an update on my post from about 6 weeks ago. It's the only other post on my profile if you haven't seen it. But for a really brief TLDR, my boyfriend's parents were arrested. His 11-year-old brother Avery came to live with us, and he was doing a lot of behaviors that made me feel uncomfortable and unsettled. First and foremost, thank you all for sending me the love, advice, and well wishes. A lot of you guys pointed out that my boyfriend, Caleb, seemed to be overwhelmed and was just sticking his head in the sand. And honestly, yeah, I sat him down a little while after I posted here, and we spoke about his brother and everything going on, and he just started crying to me. He has cried in front of me maybe twice before, so I knew he was really feeling it. He said he was really sorry for the way he'd been acting, and that he was just feeling so stressed that he was just pushing everything down and away. He agreed that Avery's behaviors were unacceptable, and that I told him he needed to have a firm conversation with Avery about boundaries, or I just wouldn't be able to live with them much longer. Caleb said he would enforce a change of rules, and then he started sobbing, went gray, and started hyperventilating. I was seriously concerned and confused about what was happening. He said he needed to tell me something. I was comforting him and trying to calm him down, and he told me he was a victim of pretty extreme CSA from his dad, and he thought Avery probably was as well, which we later found out was true. That explained a lot why Avery had no awareness of boundaries, why he was displaying these weirdly sexual behaviors. Why did we have such low contact with his parents before all this? But I met his parents. I met them multiple times. Yeah, we had LC with them, but I met them. I had been to their house. They just seemed like normal people, nice people. They weren't creepy, scary, or weird. I was really shocked at everything Caleb told me. Caleb had been hiding it for so many years, and he felt so ashamed that he hadn't reported it sooner. He said he was really hoping that the abuse hadn't also happened to Avery, and so I think he was trying so hard to ignore any signs that he had. He said he felt responsible because he never reported his dad, which meant the abuse could continue. But I told him none of this was his fault. He has no blame for him being abused or Avery being abused. We sought advice on what to do. We reported what Caleb had said to the police and to social services. Both Avery and Caleb were interviewed, but we haven't heard much back from the police about anything that might happen next. They said it could be a long process if they managed to bring any charges at all. Social services started giving us some more support. Avery has been behaving a lot better since. He's been listening to boundaries more. He's actually changed a lot in the short time since I posted here last. He's come out a bit more as a pretty charming and charismatic boy. Even though, if I'm totally honest, he's still a little weird. Maybe that's to be expected after having the life he had. I got him into scouts, and he's made a pack of really close friends who have even come over a few times. He's been getting along well with school, although they said he's only on KS1 level work, but I'm sure he'll catch up in time. And even if not, it's not the end of the world. TLDR, things have gotten a lot better since my boyfriend opened up about the abuse he had been the victim of. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.